What's going on, everybody? Hey, the music cue ended perfectly. That never happens. Well done to producer Tyler. Welcome everybody to the No House Advantage Thursday night football strategy show, coming to you Wednesday, giving you plenty of prep time, giving you an opportunity to look at this Carolina Houston game in depth. But of course, I'm Eric Lindquist. And of course, we've got our guy over here, Greg Ehrenberg at Ehrenberg DFS on the Twitter spheres. He's going to be giving you all the analysis, everything you need to know for No House Advantage. Greg, how you doing, my dude?
Yeah, doing pretty good. And there is something we have to point out with No House Advantage. So Tyrod Taylor is in the prop pool, but is not going to be playing on Thursday. That doesn't mean you go take the unders for Tyrod Taylor, because when a player is ruled out on No House Advantage, you just can't select any of their props. If you do choose to select their props, it's just automatically graded as a loss. So is Tyrod Taylor going to throw for more than 220 and a half passing yards? No, because he's not playing, but that doesn't mean that the under hits. So do not play any Tyrod Taylor props.
Same applies to Danny Amendola, who got ruled out 15 minutes before the show started. So that was good information to get as well. We're going to have that information. I'm going to see if it updates as we're on the show here, but I'm pretty sure either way, we can make some strong inferences based on how that's going to affect Houston. Also, a lot of things are going to be affecting Houston. But first, as you guys are all getting in here, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way, you know when this and all the other content at Awesemo is going live. We're, of course, covering No House Advantage today, and they bring you player props in a completely different way. It's 100% peer-to-peer contest, just like you're playing on your DFS sites, but you're playing with props, and that's for NFL, which we're going to be discussing. They have MLB going all the time, NBA when that gets going, PGA for those full field events. Definitely be checking it out because it's such a new way of playing compared to your traditional DFS sites with a bunch of sharks. No House Advantage has over 500 player props. It's the largest provider of player props in the industry. And if you use the promo code Awesemo, you'll get $25 free to use about all of these props that we're talking about. You're here for a 30-minute show. You might as well go over and invest $25, get that $25 back, and go put it to good use. They have the Thursday Night Football $5,000 with $2K to first contest. Really solid, 240 entries, low rake. Definitely be checking that out. I think that everything we're going to be discussing goes towards that contest. So definitely check them out. And thank you so much to No House Advantage for giving us this platform to be able to talk about their site. All right. From the get-go here, Greg, what are some of your strategies that you look at when you're playing No House Advantage? What do you use on the Awesemo site to help you with some of these player props? And is there any general strategy you find to work best?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one, we do have free projections for No House Advantage, and that's obviously useful to use. That has the projected the lines up there, projected odds being the over, projected odds being the under. So that's something that makes sense. And then also for individual projected stats, we do have under our NFL subheading projected stats for each player. So you could filter those out. I just filter them by Carolina, Houston, and I just look at all the individual projections for the players, and I could look at Davis Mills. I don't know that much about him. Let's just kind of see as an individual quarterback how we have him projected for this week, and not very favorably as far as a quarterback goes. We have him completing 17.84 out of 32.1 passes in our projection for 209.7 yards. So overall, pretty inefficient. And I would look at those kind of numbers and say, you know what, I don't think is going to happen in this game. I don't think Houston is going to score very many points. So that is something that's going to lead me for this particular game. And I know that you didn't ask me about this game specifically, just kind of No House Advantage as a whole. But this is a kind of situation where there's going to be value on a lot of Houston under props because the lines were set as if Tyrod Taylor is going to be the quarterback.
Yeah, and so actually, when you get Danny Amendola out of there too, we're not going to be having to worry about on No House Advantage Davis Mills. We have 209.7 passing yards for him. That's irrelevant. Touchdowns, irrelevant. Interceptions, which would be the main thing I'd be targeting with him. 0.81 interceptions, looking like it would be a solid over. I think that just Davis Mills not on the board, so we don't even have to think about it. We do, however, have to think about the major quarterback in this game, Sam Darnold. Looking at our projections for him, 250 and a half passing yards is the number we're looking at there. Looks like a solid over on Awesemo's projections. Do you agree with that assessment based on Carolina so far in this season?
Yeah, and did you ask me about, I didn't hear exactly, passing yards or passing touchdowns?
Passing yards, yep.
Passing yards, yeah, so we do have the over, very slightly though. We only have it with a 2.1% chance of hitting the over. So the reason this isn't my favorite one to play is that you could only pick one prop for each individual player. over at no house advantage. And the Sam Darnold prop, the over for the passing yards, we have a slight lean on it, but nothing really significant. However, the over for passing touchdowns, we have project for 1.84 passing touchdowns. That's going to hit the over 16.71% of the time. So if you have to take one side of the passing yards, I would lean towards the over, except that would also preclude us from taking a touchdown prop. So since that one looks more favorable in our projections, I'd be more inclined to go with that. One thing I'm going to ask you, though, do you have any concern about the game script when it comes to Sam Darnold on Thursday?
A little bit. I mean, part of it is Houston is bad, and Houston is especially bad now that they don't have Tyrod Taylor. He was a mobile quarterback. He was making a lot of plays, looked really good in that first half against Cleveland, looked fantastic in the win against Jacksonville. I think we're going to say that about a lot of teams facing Jacksonville this season where, the quarterback looked great, no shock. But Davis Mills is not very good. And so on this side, you could absolutely see a shellacking, but Sam Darnold has been very involved in the passing. We have him right now for 34 and a half attempted passes in this game. So pass attempts. I just think that there might be enough allotment there, enough wide receivers there, and Christian McCaffrey, their main back. Definitely, we know the passing prowess he has. So I'm probably with you where I think going to the over on passing touchdowns is solid. I will say on some of these larger slates, like week 3 specifically for the main slate, I love playing the interception props. The overs and the unders always seem to have a very discernible edge. And I know Alex Baker talked about that last year quite a bit on NHA. And so 0.77 interceptions, I don't think that this is as advantageous as the over 1.5 passing touchdowns here for Sam Darnold. But on the whole, that's something that I definitely want to point out as a very fun prop to be playing over on NHA. Would you kind of be leaning on the over if you had to play the interception prop for Sam Darnold as well?
Yeah, if I was taking one side, it would be on the over because, like you said, we haven't projected for 0.77 compared to the 0.5 interception prop. But once again, I do worry just about this being a spot where, all right, if Houston falls behind to Carolina, which I think is fair, like, and I phrased that intentionally. I didn't say Carolina gets up on Houston. I said Houston falls behind Carolina because I think the Texans, they've gotten surprisingly good production out of Tyrod Taylor this year, and I don't even think Tyrod Taylor is particularly good at all, but I expect this is going to be a pretty big drop off at quarterback going to Davis Mills. And I think they're really going to struggle to score points. And I do worry a little bit that it's just a situation where Sam Darnold, like, hey, you could be a game manager here. Don't take shots downfield. We're going to throw a lot of short passes, dump off to Christian McCaffrey a lot, run the ball with Christian McCaffrey. So that's the reason why also I'm a little hesitant to take the over on the interceptions because I just don't know how many chances he's going to have to take. But yeah, if I had to take one side of the interceptions, it would be the over as compared to the under because 0.5 is such a low number.
So Sam Darnold, maybe not the best play on NHA. Feel like that might be lower. So if you're looking at the game board, you have 7-1 for these single game contests. It's 10-1 for the points. So you're going to be selecting your favorite props to play in the 7-point slot. You get 7 points if you get that prop right. You're going to want to put the ones you're least confident in more towards the number 1 section. And that's kind of where I'd be leaning to put Sam Darnold props, especially because as we move to running backs here, one of my favorite props in this entire game, and I believe one of the favorites here in Awesemo's tools, Christian McCaffrey. He's a fantasy superstar. We understand that there are a lot of advantageous ways to play him. You can play him in the running game. You can play him in the passing game. But his rushing prop, 95.97 yards we're projecting him for, and that line is at 75.5 over on NHA today. How, is this your favorite prop on the board that you've seen? Or, I mean, how do you feel? Like, you've got to be feeling like you get it in good with Christian McCaffrey in this spot for sure, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we have this with a 20.76% chance hitting the over with McCaffrey, and it's the perfect game script. I view it as a very safe prop. The number seems pretty far off. You referenced our projections, how much higher we are on McCaffrey, and it's kind of weird. I mean, you look at some of the other numbers on him, and it's like 1.5 total touchdowns. So no house advantage is projecting for, you need 2 touchdowns from McCaffrey at the over, but only 75.5 rushing yards. So, I mean, all that just doesn't really kind of align. It's like if he's going to score multiple touchdowns, you'd think he's going to have over 75.5 rushing yards. So considering the game script, how poor I think the Texans are going to be as a team this year. Also, Carolina off to a surprisingly good start this year. There should be a really favorable game script for Christian McCaffrey and in a good matchup.
Yep, right there with you. Making our way over to the Houston side. Well, I guess Christian McCaffrey, you could play the total touchdowns. That seems 1.5. You're kind of playing with fire there. It would That might feel like something you might want to be leaning on the under of. But again, Christian McCaffrey is the main bell cow. Is there another prop of Christian McCaffrey's you might find a little bit more favorable even than that one, which feels pretty advantageous?
Not really, in terms of 5.5 receptions, 50.5 receiving yards. If this was expected to be either number one, a more competitive game based on the spread, or number two, a game where the Panthers were actually trailing. I think there's a lot of games where if the Panthers are underdogs, it makes sense to go with the over on passing props for McCaffrey and then under on rushing props. But then the inverse in a game like this, where they're fairly significant favorites, where I go, over on the rushing props for McCaffrey, I still wouldn't feel great about going the under on the receiving yards. But once again, we don't have to pick that one anyway. So the play here to me, as you said at the top, it's going to be over 75.5 rushing yards for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, so you alluded to the line. I guess I should have brought that up at the top of the show as well. 43.5 is the total on this one. We're not expecting a ton of points, but Carolina near 26 implied total in this one, in Houston only 18. Hey, that brings us over to the Houston side of the ball for rushing. You have Mark Ingram. We have David Johnson sitting on both of those props. Both are available on NHA. Which one would you be preferring to play? Is there one prop from either of them that really sticks out to you? That's Mark Ingram and David Johnson.
I mean, I guess it would be the under on Mark Ingram's rushing yards. We have him projected for 48.29 rushing yards. His total here is 45.5. So even though we do have him projected a little bit towards the over, if I had to pick one, it would be the under, just based on, I don't think this is an ideal game script for them to be running the ball with Mark Ingram. I think we're probably going to see a lower snap share from him today. And instead, the game's on Thursday, tomorrow, for tomorrow's game. I think he's probably going to see a little bit of a step back in a role. And I think instead they're going to be utilizing Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson more in the passing game. But once again, it's hard to really feel great about some of these props when it's, Mark Ingram over under 45.5 rushing yards, wherein it is David Johnson over under 20.5 rushing yards. I guess the one I feel best about would just be Mark Ingram under 0.5 rushing touchdowns, just because I think it's very unlikely the Texans are going to be scoring very many points in this game. And then you say, all right, even if, the total basically suggests they're going to score one, maybe two touchdowns on average. And then what are the odds that Mark Ingram's going to be that guy? Also, is there a chance that he's not playing much in the second half because they're using the pass catching back? So that's when I'd feel best about, under 0.5 rushing touchdowns for Mark Ingram. But there's none I look at and feel super confident in with the running backs here.
Yeah, and we've got Phillip Lindsay, who's kind of mixing in as well. Played 26% of snaps week 1, 23% of offensive snaps week 2. So, he's at least getting enough snaps to kind of cut into the share of each of them. I lean on the under of that same prop you're looking at, the under of 0.5 touchdowns for Mark Ingram. If we aren't expecting many points out of Houston, Mark Ingram's maybe your most likely person to get in the box. But there's enough other people around him, David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, specifically in the running game, Jordan Akins, in the passing game. I don't even know how we can start assessing Brandon Cooks here in this spot, but we'll get to him here in a minute. I'm excited to hear what you have to think about him. I think there could be one prop we could look at, but that's about it. I just feel very confident that there won't be many points from them. So Mark Ingram, if you're going to play him on NHA, love that 0.5 under. Before we get to wide receivers, Awesemo Plus NFL Weekly Express Pass is $3.95. That is such a great, easy way for you to see what we have behind the paywall. All the things that we're referencing here on the show, the projected stats, along with snap counts, all of the things that I've been assessing lately, or on any of the shows that you've watched here on Awesemo, is coming from our premium tools. And that's so easy for $3.95 to come check out. NFL DFS player and ownership rankings, expert Slack chat, everything we offer for Showdown and single game contests is available for that package. And new to the package this year, season-long fantasy football coverage, which is strength of schedule tool, trade value tool, fantasy streaming helper. Everything is expansive. We're constantly adding new stuff to it, including tiers contests. If you guys are playing those, there's such an edge to be had there. Not many sharks are playing over there. Check it out as well. Awesemo Plus, $3.95. Stop guessing, start winning. All right, let's take a look at some wide receivers here as we're moving ourselves along the board here. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, all three of them listed there from the Carolina side. Is there a prop that sticks out to you in the passing game from Carolina, the team we're expecting to trounce this Houston team?
But once again, here's an issue that I have a little bit with the pass game is just, how much are they going to have to throw the ball? And what is the realistic upside for these Panthers receivers once we get into the second half, which is definitely a concern for me. Then you look at some of the props here. DJ Moore, 70.5 receiving yards, 4.5 receptions. Our projection for him, 75.2 receiving yards, 4.85 catches. So I look at that, pretty efficient line. And then once again, really hard to feel comfortable with either side of that, given the overall expected script of this game. Then Terrence Marshall, we have him projected for 30.8 receiving yards, 2.85 catches. That's also right in line with what his no outs advantage numbers are. And then let's see, Robbie Anderson. Where is he? We have Robbie Anderson for 59.1 receiving yards and 4.5 catches. His numbers over at no outs advantage, 60.5, 4.5 receptions. These numbers are almost exactly what we have them projected for. So here's the way I think you play it. I think you play it in a correlation where it's all right. So because if the numbers are we assume to be fairly accurate, play for a game script where we just look at some of these lines and be like, okay, if the Carolina Panthers get out to a massive lead, how does that game play out? And you go, okay, Christian McCaffrey for over 75.5 rushing yards. Then you say maybe Sam Darnold under for his passing yards. I think some of the wide receivers under their passing yards, because by and large, these numbers look very, very efficient. And it's hard to really find much of an edge, except for that if you build your lineup, kind of like we do with one game showdown slates on FanDuel and DraftKings, where you're trying to correlate players together and figure out like, okay, this game plays for this team to be up ahead. And I kind of think that's how we have to play these no outs advantage ones as well, just because the numbers seem very accurate.
I absolutely agree with you. We've got Nick Thompson there in the chat who said he's smashing golf on NHA, which I got to say is my favorite product to play over there. It's so fun. It's usually just available for the Thursday rounds, but I find picking out the birdies, the over-unders of certain players, it's just a really fun game type. And I think that there's some edges to be had over there. Check that out on the Thursdays for some of their full field event stuff. But he was saying that, MLB stopped playing, which, watch a couple shows with Greg. Greg knows a thing or two about the MLB streets. I'll tell you that much. But NFL, he's saying it's just starting to bring the bankroll down. Got to start figuring that out. I got to say exactly what Greg was just talking about, correlating your lineups, having a game script in mind, just like we do for Showdown on other places that we could possibly be playing. I don't want to throw that out there. This is once again an NHA show, so want to stick to them. But any of these other sites we're playing Showdown, same thing kind of exists. That Christian McCaffrey, play him on the over on the 7-point slot, have some of the wide receiver props, have those be a little bit lower, kind of work your way down the board in terms of your confidence slot, but having the higher priority plays that you just see being numbers that are off, going up into that top slot and kind of correlating the entire game together. So love that point by you, and best of luck to you, Nick. And we've got 2 super chats here. Nick the Picker. I guess we had 2, both from Nick the Picker. You the man, Greg, from your friend Nick the Picker. Do you know Nick the Picker?
Yeah, we interact on Twitter a lot. So yes, I do know him. But also the follow-up, you're not bad either, Eric, which I think that's
$1.99 really worth.
Yeah, there also, yes, I did take note of the difference. But listen, I think this is the perfect way to sum up Eric. Is he going to show you, yeah, that guy, Eric, not bad. That's acceptable. I dig it.
You'll take it. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Nick the Picker. You're much appreciated. Let's jump ourselves over to the home team as we kind of round out everything over on NHA today. We've got, from the receiver standpoint, Brandon Cooks. We got Jordan Akins. Brandon Cooks is somebody that I really think 5.5 receptions, especially with Danny Amendola out, especially in a game that we are expecting them to be trailing a bunch. I think that this is kind of a sneaky over. And if I'm going to get contrarian in one of my top point slots, right now we've got him for 4.94 catches. I don't think that that's adjusted for Danny Amendola yet. I'm not sure if it has. We've taken Danny Amendola out of the receiving pool, so perhaps it has adjusted. But if I want to get contrarian with a 7-point slot, hoping one of these other plays fails, I want to go to Brandon Cooks in a spot where Houston is going to be trailing and going to have to air it out. I don't know. We've got right now 32 pass attempts projected for them in this game for Davis Mills. What do you think about Brandon Cooks and his props?
Not good about it. I'm going to take the complete opposite side of you. I prefer the under for sure, especially because Brandon Cooks is not a possession receiver. He's generally somebody who's, straight line receiver, makes a lot of his catches downfield. And I just don't know that Davis Mills is going to be able to make those kind of throws. And I actually think of any player in this game who's impacted the most by Davis Mills being a quarterback, I think it's probably Brandon Cooks, number one, other than if you just want to say like, oh, bad game script for the Panthers receivers. I just don't know that Brandon Cooks is going to be able to get the ball in his hands that often. And it's a fairly significantly high total here in terms of receptions. If the number was 4.5, which, by the way, this is about to be a stupid comment, be like, you know what, I like the over better if the number was lower. But if the number was 4.5, I actually would like the over a little bit, or I'd consider it to be a little bit more fair. But 5.5 receptions is just far off what an accurate number should be here. And also, don't forget, this number was made under the assumption that Tyrod Taylor is going to be quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is no longer in the picture. If we're just assuming that means a lesser Houston Texans passing game, it means the line was set incorrectly for Brandon Cooks. The way that No House Advantage sets their lines, where, it's DFS-based contest. It's not like traditional sports books. We're based on news. They're adjusting the prop lines. Whatever the line is set at the beginning of the week, that is what the line is. So if this was, if this was a sports book that was adjusting lines, then we probably would have seen Brandon Cooks at, 4.5 receptions, somewhere around there. But that's not the case. So I like the under quite a bit, and that's one of my favorite plays here. Sorry, Eric.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. No, I'm kind of game theorying this. So we have 9 total plays available to us for this Thursday night showdown. So I want to just kind of target a way to get a little bit different. And I got to think that most people are thinking like you, where Jordan Akins, Brandon Cooks, those are going to be plays that are under. So I know that there isn't going to be a roster ship. There isn't going to be a specific roster number that we're looking at for some of these plays, but I got to think most people are going to be high on Carolina Panthers and low on Houston Texans. So that kind of thinking for me just leads me to like Brandon Cooks. I'm not saying that it's probably, I'm probably leaning more towards you there, but in a game script where I just got to imagine they're going to be airing it out a bunch, for me, just to get different and to try to have a different kind of build to take first place, I think Brandon Cooks is probably my favorite play from the Houston side to get different with, just because I trust him a lot more than I trust anybody running the ball for Houston.
Well, here's one thing I'm going to add. So here's the big contest for No House Advantage. It's still an up and coming DFS site. So their big contest for Thursday night has 240 entries. I don't know you have to dig that deep to get contrarian. I think you just kind of play what some of the best plays are. I don't think that there's a massive amount of game theory that has to go into this, other than, there aren't that many options to pick. There aren't that many options to pick on a Thursday in terms of props. So that's where, when the lines are fair, I'm kind of trying to say like, okay, what's the game script for these ones make sense. But I don't think we have to bet props that we expect are negative EV just for the point of differentiation in the contest with 240 entries.
All right, that's a good point as well. I'm hoping everybody gives it an opportunity, goes over there, takes a look at all of the great contests that they offer in MLB, NFL, and again, golf. Such a fun product for those Thursdays. Nick is definitely 100% correct about that. But I think that kind of rounds up all of our analysis for this game. Any final thoughts about everything we talked about? Any other way to kind of handle playing over at NHA that might be different from your regular DFS sites?
Just one more player that I want to point out here is that we have Jordan Akins, the tight end for the Texans. He also has a really low props over on No House Advantage, but still, we haven't projected for 2.08 catches. His number on No House Advantage is 2.5. So that's another one where I lean towards the under there in terms of the Texans pass catchers. Low total, so it wouldn't be a high point play. It wouldn't be, like a 6 or 7 point play on No House Advantage. But in terms of a 1 or 2 point play, I think Jordan Akins under 2.5 receptions would be one way to go.
Darren Singletary said Ingram will rush for around 42 yards. It's a very specific number. And if he's going to go for 42, you want to be playing under 45.5 rushing yards, if I had to guess.
A little bit of a sweat, though. Like to me, if you generally have somebody project for 42 yards and the number is 45.5, you'd probably be staying away there. But like we said before with Mark Ingram, the under 0.5 rushing touchdowns, he certainly seems less likely to score a touchdown than he is to score one.
Yeah. All right, Jordan Akins, not to be mistaken for Jordan Klein. No, they are not the same person, although I think one makes more money than the other one. One might also, you know what? We're not even going to go there because Jordan Klein's a lovely person, and I would never slander his name.
According to some.
Maybe a little less athletic, if I just had to guess. Greg Ehrenberg, any final words for the people?
Yeah, Jordan can't even afford flights at his girlfriend's place. He just lives in the dark. And yeah, I disagree with the notion that he's a good person. But that aside, good luck tomorrow, everybody.
Best of luck to everybody. Don't forget, on the way out, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, go use that promo code Awesemo to get $25 on your NHA deposit today. He's Greg Ehrenberg. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck on Thursday.